Formal and dramatic elements of games. This is an overview and a little bit of depth for the online course for Berkeley Online, Game Design Principles, and I'm Lori Landay. And this material mostly comes from the Game Design Workshop by Tracy Fullerton, and this is one of our recommended texts for Game Design Principles. The language that is in this particular video and that we're using in this part of the lesson comes from this book, and it complements what we have in Jesse Schell's book, the language that we have from Steve Swink's Game Feel, and other material as well. But let's get to it with a tour of formal and dramatic elements that I've made for you in Unity, in the game engine Unity. So this is a level I made in Unity for a game about game design, and I thought I would nab this level for us to go through formal and dramatic elements. There are some other things that are in here, but we don't really need that. But so formal elements are what forms whatever medium or kind of cultural artifact or object we're talking about. So if we were talking about paintings, then we would be talking about visual art. We would be talking about elements of line and color and shape and composition, those kinds of things. If we were talking about film, well, then we're talking about lighting, and we're talking about editing, and we're talking about camera. We're talking about the specific elements of that form that are distinctive. So when we're talking about games, so for example, players are something that you would not say that paintings have players. You wouldn't say that films have, procedures, unless you're trying to really make a specific argument, or objectives or rules in the same way. Conflict. Now, all of these things should be familiar to you and are familiar to you, but we're thinking about them as the specific category of formal elements: resources, boundaries, outcome. A game has an outcome. But one of the things we would say about a game is that a game has an uncertain outcome, and each time you play it, the outcome has the potential for being different. Otherwise, what fun is it if it's always stacked so that someone's going to win? So those are the formal elements. Now in this particular level, we have other aspects of games that we're not going to explore, like things about system dynamics and other aspects of game design. So again, things that should seem very familiar to you, Game Design Principles students extraordinaire, but we're going to focus right now on dramatic elements. And so the dramatic elements, now these are the things that have to do with drama, and so these we have a great overlap with theater drama, that kind of drama, and other elements of stories: challenge, play, premise, character, story. Is anything over to the side? No. The idea of a dramatic arc. And we'll talk more about some of these in particular when we come to the story and world building aspects. Oh, here we go. Then we get to play. And of course, we always have to be thinking about iterative design. Aha! You've collected all the formal and dramatic elements. We win! So we win. So let's go back to our Prezi and think about a couple of the formal elements in detail and think about how we're going to apply them. And then we'll move along with our lesson. So hang on. We're going to leave this exciting three-dimensional space and just go back. Okay. So the way that we are most interested in thinking about these formal and dramatic elements in a practical way is how we will detail them in our game design documents in the assignments for the rest of the course. And so there is not a section of the game design documents on formal elements or on dramatic elements, but these are the things we want to be thinking about as we design. And then we will notice where they come up in the different parts of, say, the game world, or under gameplay, under game characters, under story, those kinds of aspects aspects of the game design document, components of the game design document. So, for example, when we're thinking about some of the formal elements, like rules, of course, that's going to come under gameplay. And then when we're thinking about some of the aspects of game characters, then that will come more under the dramatic elements, game world as well, and story, and some of the aspects of interface as well. So formal elements, just to recap, right? And we're going to focus on a couple of them. First of all, on objectives. When you think about objectives, then we're thinking about, well, in a way, what kind of fun is it? What kind of game is it? What is it that people are trying to accomplish when they are playing that game? And there can be different sorts of objectives in one game. It's not like there only has to be one objective in a particular game. Some of them are kind of interesting to think about, like the forbidden act, whether it's to get somebody to laugh, to get the players to laugh, or to get people to cross over a border, or, for example, the tabletop game Operation, where people, if they touch the edge of the person that they're operating on, then there's a buzzer sound. And so it's about not doing things. So that's pretty interesting. There can be elements, there can be objectives of construction and exploration. There can be an objective on a specific level where it's about racing, and then the next one might be more about chasing, right? So there are ways of combining them as you think about how you're going to make your game fun. Resources. Now, that's another one that's also really interesting. You think about how is it that you're going to make your gameplay distinctive and exciting and kind of lively and dynamic, right? We want these things to be dynamic. So there are resources that change, that dwindle, right? And then can be renewable. And then what are the ways in which they're renewable? What does it mean to get more health? What does it mean to lose health? How about currency? What does it mean to have a power up? What is in an inventory? What are the ways in which an inventory might work? What does it mean to be able to take something into inventory? Can you use it? How can you use it? Can you trade it with somebody? All of those kinds of things. Time is a very, very interesting one, right? Time as a resource is very crucial. And then in terms of the dramatic elements, I already went over these in general, but this is where we really think about that idea of flow, that principle of flow when we're talking about challenge. The challenge has to change, and that this is something that as the levels go on or as the game progresses, the challenge, of course, has to change. What it means for there to be play, right, is something that, as we've already seen, is not a simple question. We looked at Kai Wa's ideas about play for his categories of play and his examples, and so thinking about what comprises play. And then we move into some of these ideas of premise, character, story, world building, and dramatic arc, which we might say are the more narrative elements. So with that, I'm going to leave you with thinking about how these dramatic and formal elements are aspects of the game that you're creating and how you will build those into your game design document. Can't wait to see what you come up with.